For about 5 years now, I've been running this old IDE-based file server. I did a video of when I was putting this together. I think it was around May of 2009. So this thing's been running for quite a while, pretty much 24/7. I've had a few hard drive failures. All of them were Seagate drives, but they were old when I got them, so I guess I can't complain. And maybe a cooling fan or two, and a power supply module or two, but I've never lost any data, and it's worked quite well all these years. But because it uses so much electricity and only has about 3.6 terabytes of space for the entire system, which is just not enough anymore, it's time to retire this old monster. So later on this weekend we're going to be shutting it down and putting in something new. But let's go take a look at the new hardware, shall we? Well, here it all is, $2,400 later. I've got the NAS unit itself here, the Synology DS1813 Plus, the 2 GB RAM upgrade module, and 9 brand new hard drives. Each of these is 3 terabyte capacity. HGST, which is kind of a joint venture between Hitachi and Western Digital. In fact, you can see if the camera focused there, it actually says a Western Digital company. These have a better track record than the Western Digital Red drives, so I decided to go with these. Plus they're a little faster. They're actually 7,200 RPM versus the 54 or 5,900 that the Western Digital Reds run at. I can't remember exactly, but I did buy a spare because you know how it goes with any mechanical hard drive. One of them could be dead out of the box or break down early. You never really know. So the drives actually costed more than the system itself. The NAS alone is $1,000. The RAM's about $50, and the hard drives, I think these were about 150 or $160 a piece, somewhere around there. So let's get this thing out of the box. I'm really anxious to start putting this together. Alright, here's the unit itself. Very lightweight plastic hard drive caddies. And when you're using 3.5-inch drives, these are toolless. I'll try to make a quick video of installing a drive in the tray before I put the unit completely together. Taking a look around back here, it's got a pair of 120mm cooling fans, 2 USB 3.0, an eSATA connector, 4 USB 2.0, there's another eSATA over here, and my favorite thing, 4 gigabit Ethernet ports, which can be linked together to work as one, which I plan on taking advantage of. Power connector is recessed way back in there because the power supply unit itself is actually mounted in the side, and it has to have room behind it for its own cooling fan to have airflow. And I'll be taking the cover off in just a minute here to install the RAM module, so you'll get to have a closer look at that. It also came with the drive tray locking keys, 2 Ethernet cables, power cord, and some screws that are only for when you're using 2.5-inch hard drives. So the next step is, let's get the cover off this thing. Here's what the back side of the motherboard looks like. This is the RAM expansion slot here. It's a standard 24-pin ATX power connector, I think, that is hooked up there. And around at the other side, you can see the power supply. It's kind of like a regular mini ITX power supply, but it does have some what appears to be proprietary connectors down here. So hopefully this power supply is not insanely expensive if it's unique to this unit. It's actually made by Delta. I can see the logo underneath the bracket here. And I see some solid capacitors here. I'd like to think the motherboard uses good quality caps as well. Let's take a look right down in there if I can see a little bit. There's the battery. And there's the other RAM chip right down in there. It's passively cooled. There's no small fan on the CPU on this. It actually uses an Atom D2700 CPU, I think. And they designed the case so that the airflow goes over the hard drives and over the heat sinks and out the back. Even with the fans on high speed, I'm sure this thing will be a lot quieter than my existing server. But anyway, let me install this RAM chip and get the cover back on and get on with this. I've got the first of the hard drives unboxed and ready to install in the tray. I don't know why, but these drives are extremely heavy compared to the ones in my old server. I don't know if they have 4 platters in them or if they have bigger magnets or what the deal is, but they got to weigh twice of what the old Seagate Barracudas in my other file server weigh. And these drive trays look pretty straightforward. They basically have these 2 inserts that snap in and little studs that go into the hard drive mounting holes to hold it in place. And there's also little rubber shock mounts, which I like that. So I guess you just sit the drive in and then snap these in place and you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and get all 8 of these drives into their caddies and we'll get this thing hooked up. The drives are all installed, memory upgrade is installed. Now I've got it all hooked up and this is the first power up. Let's hope everything works. Gotta hold it. Man, that thing's quiet. $70 watts. A lot better than 330. As soon as that light's done flashing, I'll know it's booted up and we can try to connect to it and finish the setup. Okay, now I'm at the computer here. Open up Firefox. And I think you're supposed to go to a web address called find.synology.com. Gotta love typing with your left hand when you're right-handed. Let's see what this does. Searching. Okay, I went to Synology's website and I'm downloading the latest DSM software. Might as well just start off with the newest version instead of trying to use the built-in one. Download is almost done. Okay. I gotta watch through my viewfinder here because I'm doggone it, it opened freaking GIMP. Stupid thing. Why did I do that? Anyway, let's go back to the other tab here. Install from the computer. Browse. Downloads. There it is. And hit next. Alright, I'm going to finish setting this up and we'll resume in a minute. Alright, it says it'll be ready in approximately 10 minutes, so this must not be the full array build. I could be wrong. I think it takes a long time if you're changing an array, like adding another drive or something, so I guess we'll find out. Alright, looks like we are ready. Alright. I don't have an account yet, so I'm going to skip that. I don't need to port forward anything. Don't need to send statistics. Yes. This thing is freaking sweet. Here the hard drive's accessing. Oh God, that's going to take forever. Yeah, now it's actually creating the volume, so this might be going until Sunday. So it's going to be probably, trying to think of the capacity, 18 terabytes I think this is going to be in RAID 6. But it looks like I can still get some work done while it's doing this. Package center. So this thing can do a lot of different stuff. It can run security cameras. It can be a VPN, firewall, video server, music server, all kinds of different stuff. I'm going to be just using it for simple file serving and maybe some of the multimedia. But I already have a separate system for my firewall and everything else, and I don't want to tax this system any more than I have to. I want it to perform as fast as possible, dishing out files. But another reason I went with this system instead of a DIY solution, it would have costed me a lot more money just in hardware to do something similar to this, and it wouldn't have been nearly as compact and quiet and polished. And the software was the other major thing for me. From what I've read, these have really good support, really good software, and regular updates, so it should be really easy to work with. My old file server uses NAS Lite 2, which was really great. It had great performance, and it was like $35 to buy it. It was extremely stable. I never had a single problem with it, but however, it was very limited. It was just strictly export a couple of volumes. You couldn't change the share names. They were just disk 1, disk 2, etc. And there was no security. It was just wide open on the network all the time. Things like that. It was kind of primitive by today's standards, and it's still currently used. It's still being updated, and they're still supporting the software by all means, but it's just not, it doesn't compare to this at all. It doesn't come close. So I'm really looking forward to getting this all tweaked up and doing my first transfer. Unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to wait until probably Sunday afternoon before I can really test this thing. And I really want to set it up with the iSCSI at least to my main desktop upstairs, and maybe these two workstations down here. Any other system I'll probably just leave on the standard SMB protocol, things that don't use it on a regular basis. But for my system in my bedroom, my daily use system, I want that to have the fastest possible transfer. And in fact, I'm probably going to have to add a second Ethernet controller to that computer and find a way to aggregate the Ethernet ports to double up my bandwidth, because I'm probably going to have, I might just link up 2 ports on that, but I might go all the way up to 4 if the need arises, just to get the most bandwidth as possible, because I want this to be able to run at its full capacity with 3 or 4 people using it and not have any slowdown whatsoever. But realistically, I think 2 gigabit connections will be enough to sustain what we're going to need. I've been told that this system can do upwards of 300 megabytes per second when it's got the link aggregation turned on and everything set up properly. So it's going to be a lot better for speed. My existing server is pretty good with reading. It can almost saturate the LAN, approaching 100 megabytes per second, but the write speed leaves much to be desired. It's only 25 or 30 megabytes per second because of that old technology. This system can do over 200 megabytes per second write speed, so I'm really looking forward to being able to use this. It's going to save me a lot of time and probably a lot of stress as well. So I will follow up on this once my array is created, and we'll see what this thing can do. Oh, another fairly large mistake I made is I forgot to do the array manually, so it's doing the automatic deal, and it looks like it's only going to be a 1 disk fault tolerance, which would be the equivalent of RAID 5, and I really wanted to run this in RAID 6 with 2 disks fault tolerance. Okay, I decided to delete that volume group and just start over here. I don't want to have to wait all this time. Single volume, which is all I need. Include all the discs. Now, here we go. RAID 6. Perform disk check. I don't think I need to on a brand new frickin' drive. I just want to get this going here. Capacity about 16.35 terabytes. Sounds good to me. Let's get this show on the road. I can't believe how user-friendly this software has been so far. I really like how I like it looks, and it's laid out pretty good considering the amount of options this system has. I think they did a pretty good job of making everything easy to find and set up. You know, and I'm not a software guy. I know enough to find my way around things like this, but I am by no means a programmer, you know, or I'm hardly even what you would consider a power user, because I mainly do hardware, and this stuff, believe it or not, can confuse me quite a bit, especially if I'm tired. So we'll see where this goes. It's probably going to take quite a while. I've always loved watching all the flashing lights on things like this while they're working. And eventually I'll have 2 to 4 of these Ethernet LEDs flashing as well, but I really like having the status LEDs for the individual drives. I wasn't sure if this unit was going to do that before I bought it, but I found out right after I purchased it and I was doing some reading on it, I found out that it did have the tray LEDs, and that made me happy, because my existing server has LEDs on individual trays to tell me if one of the drives is dead and whatnot, but this will actually be a step up. This system's a lot smarter, a lot more modern, and I think it's going to be a lot easier to work with. Definitely a lot easier on my electric bill. And even though it was expensive, I've done some calculations, and I think it'll pay for itself in less than 5 years. Hopefully quite a bit less than that, actually. And I needed the space anyways. I couldn't back up my files, and putting a price on the integrity of my data is hard to do. Basically, if I'm going to continue to do YouTube videos for some time, I need this thing to store my files. I don't want to risk losing all that stuff if something happens to my YouTube account and whatnot, and I need to re-upload everything. It's just, I don't want all those years of work going down the drain. So this thing really was becoming a necessity, and it's also going to be a huge convenience and make it easier for me to pay my utility bills. Also gives me some motivation to get off my butt and put some stuff on eBay and make some more room down here for other new projects as well. Because it's the middle of winter, I haven't really been doing anything as far as cleaning and reorganizing and selling, but trust me, it's coming up. I'm going to be putting a lot of stuff on eBay soon, probably some amplifiers and other things, just to make back some of this money and make some space down here. And I'll be following up on that, some more information on that soon. Right now I just want to get this squared away. Now for the fun stuff. Let's try transferring a file and see how fast it goes, just with one LAN cable hooked up. I'm sure it's going to saturate the network. Copy. Try to paste it in my folder on the new file server here. Oh yeah. Definitely tapped out the LAN. So I know that was writing to the server, so I know for a fact that it can go even faster than that with reading. I'm not concerned at all. I'm really looking forward to getting all the link aggregation set up to have even more bandwidth. So volume is all created. Since I skipped the disk check, it didn't take very long at all. So I'm going to go get this thing installed in the rack. It's about to get much quieter in my basement, hopefully. Let's see here. Going down. Furnace is running in there. That figures. Well, time to get this beast out of the rack. One last look at this thing before it's dismounted from the rack entirely. Probably gonna have to get somebody to help me. Even with the power supplies and hard drives removed, this thing is still pretty doggone heavy. Can't believe how much quieter it is out here. Alright, I'm on the admin page for my network switch here. Ports 23 and 24 are where the file server is connected, so I've got them on a LACP active trunk. Should give me some pretty good bandwidth. Created a bonded interface and it's connected, so I think we're good to go. Now, I gotta piece together the old server and get that big monster fired back up. We're up and running in the rack now. I installed a shelf that I had laying around that actually used to hold my home theater receiver. It fit this perfectly. I've got 2 LAN ports linked up, and I should be ready to fire up the old server and start copying files over. Been waiting to do this for so long. Ever since I had to pay the electric bill for the old one, I would say. Alright, I'm almost nervous to turn this thing back on because I'm afraid it's either going to blow a power supply on startup, or one of the drives isn't going to have a good connection because I had to take them all out and put them all back in just to move this thing. It's way too heavy to move it when it's assembled. But just for the fun of it, I've got the kilowatt meter connected to it to see what kind of wattage this thing uses. And I'm ready to hit the power button. Oh, come on, where is it? 629, 711. Holy crap. Okay, it's settling back down now that it's spun the drives up. But still, holy crap. Almost 400 watts. 373, 375, 400. It hasn't even posted yet. Oh my god. Let's see. Some of my drives all got power. I hope they do. Make sure there's no degraded arrays here. Otherwise I'm going to have to do some work. Okay, that one looks good. That one looks good. Sweet. I think we're good to go. This thing uses more power than I thought, man. 396, 403, 410. Jeez, oh Pete, man. Yeah, I was right. I calculated it based on the load percentage on the UPS as idling around 330 watts, and that's exactly what the meter says most of the time. I didn't realize the camera's not picking up anything except a reflection at the moment, but hopefully you guys heard what I was saying about the numbers anyway. But it settled right around 330, so she's definitely a power hog. But I've got to put the top cover on so that the airflow is directed through the hard drives, and then I'll start my transfer. Holy crap, it's got to do a disk check. That's going to take forever. And once again, I made the mistake of not plugging it into a UPS because I'm such a dork. Let's just hope I have stable power for the next day or so. Here's a look at my old file server's GUI. You can see I had this thing pretty much, come on camera, focus. This thing was pretty much filled completely up. I had 1.6 terabytes on disk 1, which was used to store all my movies and stuff, and disk 2, which was for everything else, was about a 2 terabyte partition. Yeah, so 3.6 terabytes total, and it was very easy to fill that. So It's nice to have some breathing room on this new system. Well, I'm in the process of copying data from two machines at the same time onto the server, the new server. It's going a little slower than it really should be. I probably have to work on some settings on my switch for the link aggregation, and possibly some other stuff just needs to be tweaked, but it's still blowing the doors off the old server. Yeah. So I'm doing a backup from my computer upstairs, and I'm also copying all of my movie backups off of this server right now. It's weird seeing this old thing running. I'm already used to the new one. Well, I came down here this morning and opened the workshop door, and I kid you not, it was actually warm in here. All because that server's been running all night transferring files. But everything's all done, and I've still got almost 13 terabytes available on the new server. And it's time for the final shutdown of the old one. Good night. Peace and quiet. Hopefully won't ever have to turn that thing on again. I'm just gonna hang on to it for a little while in case there's something on it that I need, or if something happens to the new server, which I highly doubt will happen, but eventually this thing's probably going to be headed for the scrap heap. It's too heavy to ship, and it's not really worth anything anymore. Maybe part it out, I haven't decided. Somebody could probably get some use out of this case if it was possible to change the little backplanes that hook up to the hard drives. If you could find backplanes that can mount in this case and make it SATA compatible, might be able to repurpose this with some newer hardware, but I'm not so sure. It's also going to need a newer power supply. That old power supply is not very efficient. I think the spec sheet said around 64% efficient, as opposed to a modern one that's like mid-80s or higher. But it served its purpose, and now it's all done. So that is that.